And so many of us have this desire to create something, or we make a declaration that we want to, or we feel something like, I feel like I drink too much, and yet I keep drinking. And I feel like I want to create a fulfilling relationship, yet the one I'm in, I'm not trying, or I have toxic behavior patterns, or I'm settling. I'm living within a relationship container that can't possibly create the type of relationship I want. So whenever we have this desire, I want to create this, or I have information about a choice I'm making, and yet I stay in the thing. So if I desire this thing, but yet I stay in something that's not it, or I act in a way that's not in accordance with what I might call my higher self, or maybe soul, or God, or whatever you want to call it. But these feelings that we have, this relationship I need to learn better communication. Because everything you're creating in your life, you are co-creating, right? Like if you're in a relationship with someone who can't communicate, you are agreeing to be in a relationship with someone who can't communicate. And in some way, having to turn down the volume on yourself and your own communication. And then we feel like this relationship can't hold me, or doesn't have the ability. I'm not free to speak. We resent them, but really we're choosing to continue to be in relationships, choices that are not in highest alignment with what we're feeling called towards, right? So when we have this split, which what I want to create or what I'm feeling, like I said, the alcohol example is a pretty good one, or I use my phone too much. I still use my phone too much, right? This split. I feel like that relationship or that friendship feels very toxic, or they're an energy vampire. Yet I still feed the relationship. I still feed the vampire. We know we're bleeding, and yet we leave ourselves wounded, which is so fascinating about the human experience. And that's why I said we can't expect that our life should always feel good, because we are always being brought to new awarenesses through the things that don't feel good. So if I resent or reject an emotional experience I'm having, then I can't change from it. I can't actually take in the valuable information that is bringing into my body, my life, my experience, that's informing me to do something, to change something, to become something. And don't we all leave so much of our potential on the table? And then we blame other people for our potential not being claimed, not being lived. I was having a conversation on Mind this morning, and it was so great. We were talking about this, like, orient your life around your soul, not your wounds. Orient your life around what your soul desires, not spending your life protecting yourself, right? Because then you're vigilant and you're always on guard, which isn't to dismiss the things that you're trying to protect yourself against. But if you're constantly looking for ways to not get hurt, you will not be creating ways to love, right? You'll be orienting around defensiveness, not expansion. And in that conversation, someone was saying, oh, yeah, like that voice, that calling, that you should quit alcohol, you should start a job, you should do this, you should live your passion, you should learn how to heal your defensiveness, you should learn boundaries. That's the higher self. And I was like, isn't that interesting that we make it higher as opposed to the self, right? And I've used that language myself, so I'm not criticizing anyone. But isn't that interesting that it is the higher self, yet it is the invitation to be ourselves? Just like that split that I've been talking about, the space between what you say you want, who you say you are, and who you're being and what you're choosing. That split, that space, is one of the greatest sources of addiction. It's one of the greatest sources of pain, emotional, mental, physical health issues, all because we have this split where we're not actually honoring ourselves. We're not actually listening to the information that's coming in and choosing differently. We're staying the same. And that's that split, right? Where all of a sudden my soul is like, hey, or higher self or whatever is like, hey, you got this potential and there's possibility here, and you're not choosing it. And you're like, yeah, I know I'm not choosing it. And then you're like, give me more Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar chips. I know that one. Well, that's one of my greatest treatments. Gummy bears, as I've told you, another one where I overconsume things when I'm not consuming the knowledge that is available to me, when I'm not integrating the information that's available to me, when I'm not claiming the next step that is being presented to me.